Is the Premier League really the most competitive league in Europe? Hello and welcome to the What If League. Today's episode is a very interesting one and it is made after a request from one of our viewers. So this is shout out to DirkKuytsUglyBrother from my Twitch channel, which you can check out later if you want. So this request is related to having Premier League mid-table teams being swapped with a team in the Portuguese Primeira Liga and in the Dutch Eredivisie. For this particular scenario, I have chosen Everton and Southampton. Everton have been swapped with the Portuguese Benfica, while Southampton have replaced PSV Eindhoven from the Eredivisie. So as you can see already on the screen, the teams are in their respective leagues, and what I'm going to do, I am going to fast forward until the end of season 2017-2018 to see how it has developed. So then we can make some summarization and see what has happened in the meantime. And after that, I'm going to fast forward again, this time 3 more years into the future until June 2021 to see the more long-term development of this experiment. Here we are now at the 2nd of June 2018, and the first thing that I want to see is the English Premier League, where we have the first very big surprise. As you can see on the screen, PSV Eindhoven have been relegated, finishing last in the table with only 22 points against their names. Benfica somehow have managed to survive just a point above Huddersfield, who finished 18th and were also relegated. Benfica are also on the same points as Burnley, but they have worse goal difference, so that's why they are the last team into safety. So let's have a quick look at PSV Eindhoven and what happened for them. First of all, let's see their head coaches, what happened here. Philippe Cocu, the initial head coach, has been fired on the 13th of January after 4 years, so almost 5 years he has been sacked. Dennis Haar was the temporary caretaker of the team for only 8 days before they hired Walter Mazzari. But unfortunately, Walter Mazzari did not manage to lead them to safety. Let's just quickly go to the tactics screen. They're playing with a very standard 4-2-3-1 tactics, and let's see in the transfers if they managed to buy somebody. Oh yeah, they did. They bought two different players and one on loan. So Sam Field was brought on loan in the January transfer window from West Brom. Then they also bought in January Takumi Minamino from Red Bull Salzburg for 3.6 million pounds, not too shabby. And initially in the summer, on the 19th of July, they purchased Sergio Oliveira from Porto. This was actually a loan. Sorry, this is not a transfer. This is a loan, a paid loan. This player is a center midfielder, and he seems very decent. Unfortunately, he did not help them to survive. On the other side, we can see that they sold one player for 11.75 million. This is Nicolas Izimat Mirin to Real Sociedad. Probably this player could have helped them a bit, central defender. Let's see in the Premier League. Let me just have a quick look exactly what has happened and what was their main problem. So they managed to score only 30 goals, so they had very big problems scoring goals in the Premier League, while they conceded 66, which is not the worst record this year. You can see that Huddersfield were much worse, but they scored 19 goals more, and they also got relegated, so not really a lot to brag about. On the other side, let's check with Benfica. They have Marco Silva. So here we had more moves. We see Rui Vitoria was sacked. He was sacked from Benfica on the 10th, sorry, on the 3rd, no, on the 10th of March. And afterwards, Joao Tralao was the interim caretaker before Marco Silva took charge on the 21st of March. I'm not sure what was the reason. Let me quickly have a look. Now I'm going to go to the past positions. So we're going to put Benfica and PSV. So Benfica, you can see that PSV had a terrible time at the English top division. You can see that they started bad. They lost to Tottenham 3-0 in the first round. Then they lost to Manchester City, and things just started snowballing from there. So they really did not manage to get out of the relegation zone or the last position in the table. On the other side, Benfica, they had a very bright start. So in the beginning, they lost to Arsenal in the first game, but afterwards they drew with Stoke at home, lost to Liverpool. So the first three games, only 1 point, but then they beat Tottenham away. Afterwards, another win against West Brom, another win against Manchester City at home, defeat Huddersfield away, and then something happened around what time is this? This is February, where things just started to crumble down, and I imagine sorry, this was not February. Apparently, this was November, of course, and here it's December, the 2nd of December, and things started crumbling down in January when they had a bit of a purple patch of form for a couple of games before they started losing a lot of games when I imagine that their manager was fired and Marco Silva was hired. So very interesting turn of events from Benfica and PSV Eindhoven in the Premier League. Switching to the Portuguese Primeira Liga to see how did Everton fare here, and we can see that they finished fourth, which is very, very respectable. We can immediately see that they were only 1 point behind Porto, so they could have even been even better. Let's just quickly switch to the stages screen where we can see who qualified for the European competitions. So Braga and Sporting Lisbon qualified for Champions League. Porto managed to qualify for the Europa League along Marítimo and Guimarães, who I imagine were the domestic cup winners. Everton, unfortunately, 1 point behind Porto, did not manage to qualify for European football next season, but still very, very good performance from them. Let's see if they have any changes. Gerardo Martino is their manager, so they start here the season without any manager. David Unsworth is their caretaker, and they hire Gerardo Martino on the 29th of June. Going to the transfer screen, we can see Guilherme Arana has been brought on loan from Corinthians, and Robert Gummy from Lech Poznan has been purchased for £5.25 million. This is not a player I'm familiar with. This is a very young fullback. He's capable of playing both on the left and the right field. On the other side, we can see that a lot of players left on loan, but no significant transfers. Martin Stekelenburg has been sold to Valencia for £500,000. Luke Garbutt went to Ipswich. What else do we have? Alan Lennon went to Germany to play for Augsburg for £250,000. Josie Baxter went to Gil Vicente. This is another Portuguese team. And Tom Davies. Tom Davies has been purchased by PSG for a petty sum of £875,000. This is very, very interesting. I'm very surprised that Tom Davies has found himself playing for PSG, especially for this low amount. This is very interesting development here indeed. If we go to the Portuguese Primeira Liga to see what happened with Everton, we can see that actually in the 5th round of this championship, they were leading after defeating Estoril 2-0 at home, and also they were at the first position in the 10th round after another win against Boa Vista away. Afterwards, they had a very bad period of 3 games where they lost a bit, and until the end, they were at that 4th position. So very, very good performance from Everton overall. Switching to the Dutch Eredivisie, where Southampton have brought the second biggest surprise here by becoming champions of the Dutch league. You can see that they have been very dominant. They lost only 3 games, drew 5 games, and were champions 15 points above second place Feyenoord. So with the lack of PSV in this league, Ajax didn't have a very good season. They finished 4th. Feyenoord were 2nd, but nobody could really challenge Southampton. So this is really, really spectacular from them. Let's see how did they perform. So they didn't start. They started actually very well, but they had then a slump in form before picking up steam and never really removing their foot from the pedal. So very, very good performance from Southampton. Let's check their squad. Mauricio Pellegrino is still their manager. Manolo Gabbiadini is their top performer. And if we look at the transfer history, they had quite a lot of transfers. You can see £53 million spent. This is the biggest transfer spent from all of the teams that we are focusing right now. In the outgoing screen, we can see that they sold players for 78 millions, which is really, really impressive as well. And we can see that Virgil van Dijk joined Arsenal and not Liverpool in these scenarios, because this season here started in the summer of 2017, so the arranged transfers were not set. Looking at the details here, we can see that they managed to buy players from a lot of their opponents in the Dutch division. You can see Utrecht, Fortuna Sittard, Groningen, Ajax and Feyenoord On the other side, we can see that Oriol Romeo has been sold to Milan for 16.75, so this is a major transfer for them, and really, really well played that they managed to have such an impressive season even after selling a lot of their big stars. James Ward-Prowse joined West Brom for 11.75 million pounds. Shane Long went to Torino in Italy for 5.75 million pounds. So this is very, very interesting indeed. Now, before I fast forward until the end of the 3 years, the next 3 years, I just want to see what happened in the domestic cups as well. So I'm going to check with the FA Cup first, and here we see that Manchester City won that. Let's see what happened in the previous stages. So I'm just going to go back until the third round, for example, and I want to see a three. Actually, let's go to the fifth round. Let's see if we have somebody interesting here. None of the teams in focus have managed to survive until that round. So in the fourth round, what happened in the fourth round? Do we have Benfica here or PSV? No, not really. So they managed to be eliminated much earlier, which is not really a surprise before the fourth round, but that's what happens when you join a new league, when you're probably not really prepared for that. Leicester won the League Cup. That's also very interesting. Let's see before that what happened. So we are here at the final. Let's see, fourth round and a three for that. Nobody survived here as well, so they were not able to compete. This is very, very interesting. Let me check the third round. Benfica were eliminated by Swansea. PSV, do we have PSV somewhere in here? I can't really see them, so let's go to the second round. Unknown team. Okay. Okay, I think it would be easier if I just go to PSV and see what happened with them in their fixtures. Okay, so they lost to West Ham in the League Cup third round, so this is very unfortunate for them. Very, very bad season for the Dutch team in England. Switching to Taça de Portugal, which is the Portuguese Cup, we can see Everton have been eliminated in the fourth round by Aves, so they did not manage to progress very far in that competition. Let's see, in the other competition, in the other cup league here, Taça da Liga, Everton were champions, so Everton actually won a trophy in their first season in Portugal after defeating Porto in the final on penalties. Very, very impressive stuff from Everton. And moving to the Dutch Cup, where Southampton did a double where they won a second trophy in their first season in Dutch football after defeating Heerenveen after extra time in the final. 3-1 is the final score here. Nathan Redmond was the top scorer of that tournament. Very, very impressive stuff from the English Southerners team that is now playing their trade at the Eredivisie. Now I'm going to fast forward until the end of season 2020-21, and we are going to see what happened in the next 3 years. Now it's the year 2021 and it's the 2nd of June after the end of the season. As you can see on the screen, this is the championship where PSV Eindhoven managed to bounce back immediately after they were relegated, and in the next season, which is 2018-19, they were champions of the championship. Let's move on to the Premier League and see how did they perform there along Benfica. In the first season, PSV were relegated. In the second season, here, let's see, where are Benfica? Benfica are 7th. This is very impressive stuff. In their second season, they managed to get to the 7th position, just behind the top 6, which is probably very difficult to be challenged. In the next season, what happened here when also PSV have been back? They finished 11th, while Benfica dropped down one place into 8th. West Ham managed to overthrow them from the 7th position, and in the last season Benfica are 7th again, while PSV have been relegated for a second time. This time they finished with 32 points, which is much better than their first try, but still not enough to manage to avoid relegation. On the other side, we can see that there are 3 teams that are level on points with 37. Leeds United with the worst goal difference, and they get relegated along PSV and Reading. Let's have a look who is managing now PSV. Tony Pulis. They have hired Tony Pulis probably with the idea to save them. Unfortunately, he was not able to do that. You can see that he was hired in January of this last season, but he was not really successful in managing to avoid relegation. Before that, Walter Mazzari was sacked He was sacked 2 years after, almost 3 years after he was hired. Apparently, they were not very pleased with his performance, and this is about the time that they were in the relegation zone. Afterwards, Jurgen Dirks was their interim coach before Tony Pulis was hired. Let's have a look at also at Benfica and if they got any changes in staff. Marco Silva is still their manager, so apparently no, and I don't see any reason why they would do that with such a stable performance in the English Premier League from the Portuguese Benfica. Very good stuff. Moving to the FA Cup, where in the last 3 seasons Manchester United, Liverpool, and Chelsea were winners, so our teams of focus did not really manage to do anything memorable. In the League Cup, Benfica managed to win one trophy in the previous season. This is most impressive. Benfica were champions of the League Cup in season 2019-2020. And even in this last season, you can see that Herving Lozano had the highest average rating of all players in this tournament. So Benfica and PSV Eindhoven are really trying to perform. Unfortunately for PSV, it's not really working out for them. Switching our attention to the Portuguese Primeira Liga, and in the first season Everton finished fourth. Next season they finished third, which means that they qualified for the Europa League, and they were only 1 point behind second place Porto, which could have brought them Champions League. Next season, third again behind Porto and Sporting Lisbon. This time they were very far from the top two, but they were 1 point above Braga, so good for them managing to keep that third place. And in the last season, another third place finish. This time 5 points behind Braga and a staggering 18 points behind the eventual champions Porto. Let's see what happened in the cup competitions here before I move to see who is still leading Everton. Maybe it's they haven't really had any change in staff, but who knows. So in Taça de Portugal, which is the major cup competition in Portugal, Portimonense, Porto, and Braga were the winners of this competition in the last 3 years. So no trophies for Everton. In Taça da Liga, Sporting Lisbon and twice Porto were champions. So Everton only managed to win a trophy in their very first year. Their manager now is Rui Vitoria, and let's see what happened and when did they fire Gerardo Martino. So they fired Gerardo Martino on what is this? So this is the 1st of March after almost 3 years. Actually, they did not fire him. He left the role. Gerardo Martino, where is he now? He is not really managing any other team. I'm not sure why this happened, but apparently he was not pleased probably with the team or the board. Who knows? Afterwards, they hired Rui Vitoria, who guided them to another third place finish. Switching to the Dutch League, where in the first season Southampton were crowd champions. In the next season, they are champions once more, this time 16 points above second place Heerenveen, and we see that Feyenoord and Ajax both did not have the best of seasons. So Southampton, 2 titles from 2 years. Third year, another title. This time they were on level with Ajax, but they had a much superior goal difference, 8 goals more, and we can see that they both scored and conceded better than Ajax. And in their last season here, fourth consecutive title for the Southampton team. They are really dominant in the Dutch league. Nobody can even get close to them. This year they were champions with 5 point cushion. Let's see what is happening in the Dutch Cup, and afterwards we'll check what is happening within Southampton. This is very impressive for them. The Dutch Cup was won by Roda, AZ Alkmaar, and Feyenoord in the next 3 years, so they did not really manage to win any more trophies. Martin Jol is now the manager of Southampton, and Pierre-Emile Højbjerg is their key player. Let's see what happened here. Mauricio Pellegrino left his role. Let's see if he managed to join. He joined Norwich. This is very interesting. So he left Southampton, being champion in the Netherlands, to join another English team. Carlos Companucci was the interim head coach before Martinho took over the position on the 16th of January 2020, and ever since then he won 2 leagues and 1 cup. 1 cup, which means that they have the Dutch Super Cup, which is not really a major cup. I'm afraid I'm not sure why it's counted as that. I wouldn't count it, but anyway, it's a trophy for Martinho. Quite impressive indeed. So, to summarize our experiment, it appears that Everton is apparently at the level of Braga, but not quite at the level of Porto, Sporting, and Benfica, meaning that they haven't really challenged for the title in the 4 seasons which we have observed. On the other hand, Southampton is most definitely stronger than the leading teams in the Netherlands. I'm not sure if PSV maybe would have put up more of a fight, but I really doubt it considering how they progressed in the Premier League. And looking at Benfica and PSV in the Premier League, I think it's fair to say that Benfica is a really strong team, probably at the exact same level as Everton. So they are just beneath the top six, but really trying to challenge and being consistent in their seasons. While PSV, as you saw, they were relegated twice and finished in the bottom half of the table in the other 2 seasons. So I'm really not that impressive. The positive thing for them is that they managed to get out of the Champions League, the Championship, winning that league from the first time asking, and they did not spend any more time in outside of the Premier League. But other than that, really not that impressive from the Dutch team. Before we end, I also want to check what's happening in the European competitions and whether the teams performed impressive in them. I think the only team that's managed to qualify would be Southampton, so we'll see what happens there. So first off, we start with the Europa League, and we are going to begin with season 2017-18 when Liverpool were champions after defeating Roma in the final. If we look here, we don't have any familiar names from the teams that we are following. We're just going to mention that Liverpool also defeated Olympique Marseille, the English Arsenal in the quarterfinals, and the French Lyon in the second knockout round. In the next season, Manchester United were winners of the Europa League after defeating Porto in the final. Beforehand, they also eliminated Tottenham, Bordeaux, and Stuttgart. And just having a quick look here, again, no familiar names. In the third season, Arsenal are winners of the Europa League after defeating Atletico Madrid in the final. Arsenal also defeated Sporting Lisbon, Wolfsburg, and Roma. And again, we don't have any of the teams in focus at this stage in the Europa League. Last season, Inter were crowned champions of the second most important European competition after defeating Napoli in the final that was played at the Allianz Arena in Munich. Inter also defeated the Italian compatriots Lazio. Before that, they eliminated Stoke in the quarterfinals and Fiorentina in the second knockout round. Looking at the teams, again, there is no familiar names in here as well. Now we're going to move one tier up into the Champions League and see what happened there with Southampton. Starting from the first season, let's see where did Southampton manage to play. So, of course, they're not here because they haven't yet qualified. Let's see then what happened in that season in terms of the later stages. Manchester City were champions of Europe after defeating Atletico Madrid in the final 2-0. Before that, they eliminated PSG in the semi-finals, Red Bull Leipzig in the quarters, and the Spanish Sevilla on away goals in the first knockout round. Just looking at the Champions League, I realized that Southampton did not compete in any of the years, and this is very strange to me. I need to check what is causing this. But as you can see right now in their schedule list, they have no games in the European competitions, although they were champions of the Eredivisie 4 years in a row. If somebody knows what is causing this, is maybe it's something to do with the database file and the editor, but I'm really not sure why they are not competing in the European competitions. So let me go back and just show you the rest of the Champions League for those 3 years. In the second season, Manchester City managed to defend their title, and they defeated Arsenal in an all-English final. On their way to the final, they defeated also Monaco, Roma, and Borussia Dortmund. Then in the third season, Manchester City winning their third Champions League in a row. This time in an all-English final defeating Liverpool. Before that, they eliminated Real Madrid, Chelsea, and the Turkish Fenerbahce. In the last season, Chelsea won the Champions League, so this is four consecutive English teams winning the Champions League. Very, very impressive from the Premier League teams. Chelsea managed to eliminate Liverpool 1-0 on after extra time. They also eliminated Real Madrid, the Italian Roma, and Barcelona in the first knockout round. With that, I am going to end this experiment. I am going to research what has caused this lack of European competitions for Southampton. I find this very disappointing. I was really looking forward to seeing how would the Saints perform in Europe. Unfortunately, that is not happening, and we can see that other Dutch teams are actually playing part of the European competitions, but Southampton is not. So this is really strange. If anybody of you guys know what is the deal with that, please drop a comment so that I can fix that and maybe redo this experiment in the future to see how it goes. If you haven't still liked this video, please do so, and remember to subscribe for my channel so that you can receive notifications for when I upload new videos. You can also see my social media. There will be links in the description. Once again, if you have any requests, please let me know. I'll be more than glad to do them. You can see that it's quite fun and very interesting experiments come out of this. So thank you guys for watching. Until the next time, bye.